You know that feeling, the one where you are standing completely still, not because you don't know where you want to go, but because the door in front of you hasn't opened yet. You've been standing there long enough that you've started to wonder if you imagine the door. If you made up the whole thing, the connection you felt, the possibility you sensed, the version of your life that felt like it was supposed to include something more than what you currently have. You haven't stopped hoping, but the hope has a weight to it now. A tiredness underneath the wanting that you don't tell many people about, because telling people means explaining why you're still standing at this particular door and not somewhere else entirely. And you're not sure you can explain it. You just know you haven't been able to leave. That feeling, the specific, exhausting combination of hope and stillness, of wanting something so much that the wanting itself has become its own kind of presence in your life, has not been a sign of something wrong with you. It has been a sign of something cosmic at work, something that has been creating conditions specifically designed to keep you standing at that door, kept in a kind of emotional suspension that felt like waiting, but was actually something more like being held in place. Kept from moving forward into what you want, but also kept from being able to honestly release the wanting itself. Today, that suspension ends, not with a gentle softening, with friction, with the particular kind of internal confrontation that only comes when two forces that have been working in opposite directions inside you reach their point of maximum tension, and one of them finally wins. What is happening today is the beginning of your release from the pattern that has been keeping you at the door. And what is arriving tomorrow is the reason today's release has to happen first. To understand what is shifting in you right now, you need to understand what has been creating the suspension. Because the reason you've been standing at this door, the reason the thing you want has felt simultaneously so close and so impossible, has nothing to do with the other person, or the timing, or the circumstances, or the particular way the situation unfolded. All of those things have felt like the reason. They have presented themselves as the explanation. The timing was wrong. The person wasn't ready. The circumstances created an obstacle that, if they had been different, would have allowed the connection to unfold naturally. If that one thing had gone differently, if that conversation had landed differently, if you had said the thing you didn't say, or hadn't said the thing you did. The story has been so convincing because it has been constructed from real events. Real things happened. Real timing was difficult. Real words were said and not said. But the story that was built from those real events, the story about why the love you want has been just out of reach, and what would need to be different for you to finally have it, that story has been Neptune's work. And Neptune, in the specific way it has been operating in the energy of recent months, has been a master of keeping that story alive and plausible and just believable enough to keep you standing at the door. Neptune creates fog. It softens the edges of reality. It makes the thing you're longing for appear, through the fog, as more perfectly suited to you than it may actually be, or it makes the obstacle appear as more immovable than it may actually be. Sometimes both simultaneously. Neptune takes what is genuinely uncertain and gives it the emotional weight of something known and fated and predestined, so that releasing it feels like abandoning something real rather than releasing something that was never quite as certain as the feeling made it seem. The attachment you have been carrying to the person, to the possibility, to the specific version of how the love you want is supposed to arrive, has been Neptune-colored. Luminous with a light that comes from inside you, projected onto the thing you're longing for, making it glow with a significance that is partly genuine and partly the story you've been telling yourself about what it means and what losing it would mean, and why you cannot simply close that door and find a different one. Mars arrived at Neptune's position today, and the word that matters most in that sentence is arrived, because Mars does not drift into things. Mars moves with the specific, directed, friction-generating energy of forward force, encountering what is in its path. And what Mars has encountered today, in the space where Neptune has been operating in your emotional life, is the fog itself. Mars burns through fog, not gently, not with the gradual, patient clearing that comes when morning sun lifts a mist, but with the friction heat of a force that refuses to stop moving just because the visibility is low. Mars in Aries, the sign of its own most natural expression, does not accommodate the suspension Neptune creates. It does not stand patiently at the door waiting for it to open. It turns on the lights in the hall and says, "Let's see what is actually here." What is actually here is both more and less than the fog has been showing you. More, in the sense that what you are, what you bring to love, what you are capable of, what you actually deserve in a connection, is considerably more than the diminished version of yourself that standing at this particular door for this long has been making you feel you are. And less, in the sense that what you have been longing for with such exhausting, hope-tired intensity may not have been quite as certain or as uniquely fated as the Neptune-colored attachment to it has been feeling. The friction of Mars meeting Neptune today is the internal confrontation that has been approaching since before you knew it was coming. It is the moment when the part of you that knows, that has always known, underneath the story, underneath the hope and the attachment, what you actually deserve in love, finally meets the part of you that has been willing to accept less than that, to wait indefinitely for something that has been slow to materialize, to choose the suspension of standing at a door over the forward motion of finding a different one. Those two parts of you are meeting today, with friction, and the outcome of their meeting is the release you have been needing for longer than this particular door has been in your life. Here is what the internal confrontation looks like from the inside, because it may already be happening and you may not have recognized it as what it is. There is a moment, or there will be a moment today, when the tiredness underneath the hope is more present than the hope itself. When the exhaustion of the waiting is louder than the anticipation of what you've been waiting for. When something in you asks, honestly and without the protective cushioning of the story about timing and circumstances, why am I still doing this? Not as a question of defeat, as a genuine inquiry. Why am I still organizing my emotional life around this particular possibility? What does staying here cost me in terms of being fully available for what is actually trying to arrive? That question, when it arrives with enough honesty behind it to actually land rather than being managed back into the story, is Mars meeting Neptune. That is the fog beginning to burn off. Not because the thing you've been hoping for is definitively wrong or definitively unavailable. Mars doesn't bring that kind of certainty. What it brings is clarity about the cost. The specific, honest accounting of what this waiting, this suspension, this staying at the door has been requiring from you in terms of your own forward motion. Because here is what Neptune's fog has been preventing you from seeing clearly. The pattern that has been keeping you suspended is not the external situation. The external situation is the form the pattern has taken in this chapter. The pattern itself, the specific way you have been orienting your emotional life around something not yet here, the way the wanting has become a companion more present than the possibility of actually receiving what you want. That pattern existed before this particular door appeared in your life. It will exist in some form after this door, unless the clarity of today's confrontation allows you to actually see it and, in the seeing, begin to release it. The confrontation is with the pattern. The fog was protecting the pattern by making the external situation, the person, the timing, the circumstances, seem like the thing requiring engagement. Mars arriving today is revealing that the engagement required has always been internal. With the part of you that learned, somewhere long before this current situation, that love comes with suspension. That wanting something deeply means waiting for it indefinitely. That the door will open eventually if you are patient and hopeful and faithful enough to stay. That belief, wherever it came from and however long it has been operating, is what today is burning through. And the burning is uncomfortable. It is the friction of Mars meeting Neptune. But it is the specific discomfort of something releasing, not something breaking. Of a pattern losing its hold, not of hope losing its foundation. What is true about what you have been waiting for, stripped of Neptune's luminous projection, stripped of the story about timing and circumstances, and what would happen if just this one thing were different, is something worth sitting with honestly today. because the truth of it is both harder and kinder than the fog has been showing you. The harder truth is that the suspension itself has been the problem, not the external situation. The suspension, the choice to organize your emotional life around the waiting, to keep the largest part of your relational energy directed at a door that has not opened, to stay partially unavailable to other forms of connection and possibility because this one feels like the one. That is what has been most costly. And the cost has not been abstract. It has been paid in the specific currency of days and months spent standing still while the rest of your life, the part that is fully available and fully happening right now, has been receiving less than its full share of your presence. The kinder truth is that none of this has been wasted. The standing at the door, the hope-tired waiting, the specific quality of loving something before it has arrived and holding that love even when the arrival has been delayed beyond what feels endurable. That is not a deficiency. That is a capacity. The depth of feeling you have brought to this waiting is evidence of the depth of connection you are capable of. And that capacity, freed from the specific suspension that Neptune has been keeping it locked in, is exactly what the thing that is coming can actually receive. What is coming, what is arriving in the next period of this cycle, what tomorrow is a threshold for, requires you to have the full depth of that capacity available, not directed at the specific door that has been consuming it, available, in motion, freed from the suspension into the forward motion that Mars arriving today is initiating. The release that today is asking for is not the abandonment of hope. It is the redirection of hope from the specific form it has been locked into the larger, more open, more genuinely available form that your capacity for love actually deserves to be expressed in. You can feel, somewhere in the texture of the last day or two, that something is different. Not in the external circumstances, those may look exactly as they did yesterday, but in the quality of the feeling itself. A slight loosening, a subtle sense that the thing you have been held in place by has fractally reduced its grip. A moment, maybe brief, maybe quickly managed back into the familiar holding pattern, but present and real, when the door didn't feel quite as much like the only door. When the possibility of forward motion in a different direction felt slightly more available than it has felt in a while. That loosening is the beginning of today's release. Mars encountering Neptune is not an overnight transformation. It is the beginning of the burning off of a fog that has been dense and long established. The loosening is real, and it will build across today and into tomorrow, and what arrives tomorrow will feel like the confirmation of something that today is initiating. I am not going to name what is coming tomorrow. The specifics are yours. They will arrive in the particular form your life is prepared for, in the specific circumstances that align with the direction you are now beginning to free yourself to move in. But I want you to understand this. What is arriving tomorrow requires the weight you have been carrying to be set down, or at least significantly reduced, before it can fully reach you. The thing that has been approaching your life, moving toward you even while you were standing at the other door, patient and present in a way that things that are genuinely meant for you tend to be, cannot occupy the same space as the suspension. It needs the room that the release is making. This is why today matters. Not because of anything you need to do externally, because of what you need to allow internally. The permission, given to yourself by yourself in the quiet honesty of this specific moment, to stop organizing your emotional life around the door that hasn't opened. To stop measuring your worth by whether the thing you have been hoping for has arrived. To stop treating the wanting as evidence of a problem and start treating it as evidence of a capacity that deserves to be met. The pattern that Neptune has been keeping alive in you is not a flaw. It is a learned response to something that happened before this situation, in a context that taught you, through the specific emotional logic of experience, that love requires waiting. That the things you most want will be the things most delayed. That hope is the posture of the deserving, and that continuing to hope despite the delay is what makes you worthy of eventually receiving what you hope for. That belief is kind in its origins and limiting in its effects. Kind because it was built on genuine hope and genuine love. Limiting because it has been keeping your forward motion contingent on the arrival of a specific external thing, rather than on your own readiness to be fully, actively present in the direction of your own life. The waiting has felt like faithfulness. Mars arriving today is showing you that it has also been a form of self-diminishment, a choice to make your presence in your own life dependent on something that has not arrived, rather than bringing the full weight of your presence to the life that is actually fully, completely available to you right now. Today is the day that changes, not because the external circumstances are suddenly different, because you are receiving the clarity to see the cost of the pattern clearly enough to choose differently, to choose forward motion over suspension, to choose full presence in your own life over the held back, waiting for permission to fully arrive posture that the Neptune fog has been sustaining. This is the confrontation, and it resolves not with defeat of what you've been hoping for, but with the release of the pattern that has been keeping you from fully moving toward it, or toward something even better, or toward the version of yourself that is capable of receiving real connection rather than perpetually waiting for it. Things are moving. This is not a hope or an encouragement. It is an accurate description of what the current astrological energy is doing in the emotional and relational landscape of your life right now. The freeze is thawing. The pattern is releasing. The fog is beginning to burn off with the specific, friction-generated clarity that Mars meeting Neptune always produces. And the forward motion that has been waiting, on the other side of the suspension, available and real but inaccessible while you were organized around standing at the door, is becoming available to you today in a way it has not been available in some time. You are not behind. You have not wasted the time at the door. Everything you felt and hoped and held on to and refused to stop believing in during the standing at the door period is real information about your capacity for love. It is evidence of something in you that does not give up easily, that holds the vision of what connection can be even when the arrival of that connection is delayed. That quality is not a weakness to be corrected. It is a depth to be honored, and then redirected today toward the forward motion that it has always been built for. Tomorrow holds something that the weight of the suspension has been preventing you from fully receiving. You don't need to know what it is. You need to be lighter when it arrives. You need to have set down, or begun to set down, enough of the weight of the waiting that there is room in your emotional life for something new to land without competing with the thing you've been holding. Set it down today, not because the thing you were hoping for was never real, but because the version of you that is standing at that door, hope-tired and suspended and organized around waiting, is not the version that what is coming needs to find. What is coming needs to find the version of you that is in motion, present, available, not waiting at a door but walking in a direction, your own direction, toward your own life, with the full weight of your capacity for love freed from the specific suspension and pointed forward. That version of you begins today, in the honesty of the confrontation that Mars is making possible, in the release of the pattern that Neptune has been keeping alive, in the permission you give yourself, right now, to stop waiting for the door to open and start walking in the direction you have always been meant to walk in. The fog is lifting. The freeze is thawing. You are exactly on time. And tomorrow, when what has been moving toward you finally reaches you, you will understand why today was necessary, why the burning off had to happen before the arrival, why Mars had to meet Neptune before what is coming could land. Be ready. Be lighter. Be in motion. It is coming.